Welcome to a Blood and Pigment ship review. We are here talking about the Fluyt today, the pride of any Dutch fleet. I am Joseph.
I am Guy.
And I'm Dan.
The Fluyt, or the Flout, as the Wikipedia pronunciation guide says, was designed for transoceanic voyages, a Dutch ship, and in Blood and Plunder, the Flout, or Fluyt, is a 3-deck ship, and it costs 15 points.
The Flout's max speed is 4 inches. It has a sail setting for 4 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches, 1 inch, and 0 inches. Its windward value is -2, and it has a turn value of 3 inches.
The Fluyt has a hull fortitude of 4 and a hull integrity of 6. It takes 18 hits to drop the ship to 1 fortitude. The rigging of the Fluyt has fortitude 3 and integrity 6, and the ship's draft is 6.
The Fluyt's forecastle can hold 21 models. The main deck can hold 25. The quarterdeck can hold 15. And the poop deck, which is a subsection of the third deck, can hold 7 models.
This ship's forecastle can have 4 light or medium cannons, or 2 pairs, and 4 swivel guns. The main deck can have 2 pairs of cannons. The quarterdeck can have 2 pairs, along with 2 swivel guns and 2 aft-facing chasers.
The Fluyt comes with the traits Chasers, Pinked Stern, Easy to Handle, Whipstaff, and Poop Deck, all at no cost. They come with the ship.
And possible upgrades that do cost are Fighting Tops, 2 points each. I think you can put up to 2 on. And you can add Heavily Built for 4 points. So the Fluyt is not a warship, which makes it an interesting inclusion in Blood and Plunder. And the joke is that it's a bathtub, right?
Yes, it handles a lot like a bathtub. It looks a little bit like a bathtub. It has bulging sides that it's really put us for a loop on how to measure cannon strikes, because if you measure from the cannon tip is usually closer to the center of the model than the bulging bathtub sides.
Pear-shaped is the way it's described.
Yes. Everything on this ship is pear-shaped.
And it also resembles a bathtub because if you bring it to fight an actual dedicated warship, it will fill with water and become a real bathtub.
Well, that doesn't happen a lot in Blood and Plunder with the point limits.
If you bring it against a dedicated warship, maybe a light frigate if your opponent's a little incompetent, you're going to take a lot of hits even with heavily built. I love the way it looks. I know we were just talking about it. I love the way it looks. I love how it handles with the easy to handle trait, but it's slightly better than a brigantine, but not by much. You get more guns, but it feels fragile.
That actually is my first thing that I like about the Fluyt, is that it has the same number of broadside guns as the light frigate, but in a better configuration where you get 2 guns per deck.
I'm not sure if I call it better, but it's definitely different. I like the 3 in the 1 deck on the light frigate.
Oh, 3 is good.
Yeah,
but you have that 1 in the front.
That's nobody wants to man that. That's a pain.
Yeah, especially there's only 2 swivels on that deck too, whereas the Fluyt has 4 in the front.
Yeah, let's. Can I kind of outline what I like about the Fluyt, and then you guys can bash it? I know you really.
Oh man, please. What were you talking about? I just said something good about it.
You did say something nice, yeah. But I know Dan's raring to go.
Oh, I am.
So it's a big ship. It's one of the bigger ships in Blood and Plunder. It's probably the 3rd biggest, heaviest, at least massive physically on the board. And that one of the good things about that in gameplay is it's very tall and you get a height advantage. So if you're shooting from the poop deck, you have easy 2-inch height advantage for most other ships, which gives them a save penalty. So that's a really fun part of this ship.
Even from the forecastle and quarterdeck too. A lot of the time, if your opponent's in a sloop or a bark going after the main deck, you have that height advantage 100% of the time.
It's a big ship. The Canon setup is pretty good. You only can do medium or light, but you have 2 and 2 and 2, which makes it different than the light frigate, like we talked about. but it's harder to knock out the cannons on it because you have 3 equal decks. You have to hit each one rather than targeting that main deck of 6 cannons on the light frigate. You also can run it with less crew, and that's fun. I think that's the way it was used historically too. It was designed to be lightly manned, and it was designed not to really carry many weapons.
Mhm.
But with that 3-3-3, you can just put, if you're doing light cannons that you need 2 men each, you could put maybe 5 or 6 crew on each of those, and then one deck might get hit and get below your crew to get all the cannons firing efficiently. But you have 2 other decks, so it's hard to knock out all the cannons. You can do a kind of a minimal crew and still keep it going. The 4 swivels in the front is good. That's very aggressive. Not a whole lot of ships have that. The light frigate doesn't. I think that's the best placement, best possible placement for swivels. Your front deck, you can kind of maneuver that the easiest. You're going to be meeting your enemy from that front. So getting 12 dice of swivels early in the game and be able to shoot those fast is quite good. And it's not seen on all the warships.
It is hurt a little bit. Kind of using is hurt by the ship's speed and windward value, where you can't bring those guns to bear as quickly as you would usually like.
Patience. You get to bash it in a minute. Yeah. The pink stern is a little bit of advantage. You don't get blasted so bad if you shoot from the back. The easy to handle is real nice. You can use a standard action instead of a dedicated action. That represents the rigging upgrade kind of stuff they did to it. So they could use a light crew. And the whipstaff is nice as well. The ship does not suffer a turning penalty for having no units on the rearmost deck. So in general, it's easy to sail, although its sailing capabilities are not great. So that's my sales pitch for it. Now you can rip into it. The possibility of having it heavily built is actually quite nice too. And the combination of a small crew and heavily built makes this a good big ship for a small game, in my opinion. It's not a great ship for a big game, but at 200 points, you can make this a pretty interesting ship. And you might not be up against a massive gunship. And you might be up against smaller ships, which will give you that height advantage.
I think you should just stop there. Hey, Firelock, put this on the back of your box. This is a great big ship for a small game. Small box quote, back of the box quote right there.
I do see one other saving grace, and that would be, again, in my opinion, in the privateer version of the ship, the privateer Fluyt, because you do gain that 5-inch movement with Swift. I know you have to have someone assigned. So in a smaller game, while you sacrifice heavily built at a point of fortitude, you get that crucial 5-inch speed, and you now got basically almost a budget light frigate. While you're lacking, the Fortitude 5, you have armaments in a much better configuration, and you can now keep up with all the smaller ships you'd expect to encounter.
Only problem with that is you don't have the 5-speed upwind. So the nasty part in this ship is you can hardly ever move faster than 2 inches if you have to go upwind. So that's where it gets kind of stuck.
Yeah, you always want to sail large. That's where the bathtub thing came from, was the moment you turned it windward, Joseph, it just inched around everywhere. And then we had the event where everything slowed down by 1, and it was just inching along 1 inch at a time.
So a sailing master is a very good investment in the Fluyt, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the privateer Fluyt, I can see where in a small game it could be useful if you know you're going to be the attacker. You get that crucial 5-inch speed, sailing large when at your back. I do see that as an advantage. You're trading a little bit of that durability with dropping 1 point of hull fortitude, integrity, and then dropping, the ability to take heavily built. But it can go up to 5 inches, which is good. But yeah, otherwise, I would argue this ship's main goal, if you're doing a small point game, load it up with muskets, take advantage of that height advantage you have, and blow people away with cannons. You're not going to be catching anybody anytime soon, and don't let someone outmaneuver you. Because if a sloop starts going upwind because the wind doesn't exist for a sloop, then
Put
that's
some
about
distance
it.
between your ships. Like if they're going upwind, nobody wants to be like sailing cool little circles by themselves when every shot is a 9 to hit. If a sloop goes upwind, then turn the other way and just put distance between you and them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like no one likes like doing cool sailing maneuvers, but every time they want to shoot their cannons, they have to get a 9 or a 10 to hit. That just feels bad.
Another advantage of the height is if you get grappled from a flute, say or a smaller ship, they actually have to make a climb action to charge.
Yeah. Though in
Which
practice, most
can
of the
be a
time,
huge difference. You can just not, if you have to
yeah,
grapple, then you can't climb unless you have a dedicated action available through a command point or something. So
yeah. So
that
the
can make it a
unit
little more
can't do it by
defensible.
themselves. Most of the time, though, if an opponent's going to grapple, they're going to go after that middle deck too, though, because that one usually you don't have a 2-inch side advantage
Yeah.
against the main deck of the flute. But and with how puddly the flout is most of the time, an opponent that's running like a boarding list is going to get in range. Hopefully, if you're piloting the flout, you're going to make them hurt before they get in range. But they're going to catch up to you and board you. Now, going into some of the stuff, you're right, Joseph. This is a ship that you can run a skeleton crew on. Easy to handle. A couple like light guns on there, and with the whip staff, you can load all your forward decks and just ignore the rear of the ship and run it as like half a ship almost. It's sounds really fun.
You can even drop the light guns and just take swivels and musketeers and just make a true gunboat and not worry about the cannons and spend more points getting more guys with muskets. Especially if you know someone's going to board, really make them hurt. I think that on paper it looks like it has a lot of stuff going for it, but in practice it's gimmicky. But I love the model. I love how cool it looks. I love how unique it looks. But it's very gimmicky, and you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to take this.
Yeah, we kind of also need to say that heavily built trait, you're going to take 100. You should take 100% of the time, unless you're playing like the Dutch where you get it automatically, or another faction like who else would get it automatically?
Well, if you're playing against natives or something, there's no reason
Yeah,
to
natives,
if
or
you
you're
don't
doing
think your enemy is going to run cannons.
if you're doing an amphibious game, you don't need to take heavily
Yeah.
built because most of the time they don't have a gun emplacement. If you're against natives, if you're playing a flout and at 300 points and your opponent only has 200 points, probably just don't. Well, not even then. If they're going to kill one model, and that heavily built would stop them from killing, heavily built has paid for itself. Like if it saves one model's life, and so really this is like a 19-point ship most of the time.
And once you get to 19, you have to consider if you want to go to a light frigate for 21 points, right?
Yeah.
It's a very different ship, but overall a much stronger warship.
It has the same number of guns, although I would argue that a light frigate has a 5-gun broadside because of how rarely you want to man that forward cannon.
Going back to that, the light frigate is easier to get criticals with those 3 guns in one deck. But if you have a broadside commander, you can fire 3 decks of this on this and be pretty effective. But it takes a little more gimmick and fiddliness, like Dan said. Did you guys have a laundry list of complaints you wanted to go through, or are you just gonna let me get away with that list of nice things?
Well, we're like it's definitely a ship. It's not one. This is the only one I don't own, even though I've piloted yours more than once, Joseph, and each time lost spectacularly.
If you get any damage in your sails, and if you have to go upwind at all, it's kind of ridiculous how slow and sad it is. But I've had a lot of fun with it.
You've won against me with it too. Like it's a different ship. It's nice to see it on the table. I would also we started recently measuring from the bulge on the bottom because I have a laser level that does the
Table
distance for us.
height, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot better in that way because it's just more secure knowing like what the distance is. It's a different ship. I don't like it personally. I don't mind seeing it on the table, but of all the ships that exist, this is my least favorite one. And although it has good sides, like Whipstaff is really cool, being able to just front load a ship and ignore those back decks. The poop deck is okay, but only having 7 models means that it kind of has the same problem as the Corvette's forecastle.
Weird subsection, yeah.
Yeah.
Other cool things about it, this model is pretty fun to paint. It has a fun stern, some nice ornamentation back there. It's a very unique shape. But yeah, it's not your ideal warship. If you want some variety, something unique on the table, if you want to look Dutch, this is a really good way to do it. But there's no getting around it. It was designed as a merchant ship, so it's not going to compete toe-to-toe with some of the warships you might find in the game.
Also interesting that it runs the same sails as the light frigate too. So if you want a like tall ship without buying the galleon or the 6-rate, this is an option. Or if you already have those ships and you want another like big, impressive looking ship, the Fluyt is one of them. We should mention the price really quick though.
So the price point is $216 after their second most recent price increase over the last year. This is in 2022. Compare that to the light frigate at $142. Light frigate is definitely a stronger choice if you're looking for a pure power level. The 6th-rate, which is an even bigger ship and stronger overall, but as a 4-deck ship, is $240, so very comparable. The Brigantine is also a 3-deck ship that's smaller, but similar power level. It's only $107, so that's about half the cost.
You could get 2 Brigantines for 1 Fluyt.
That $2 left in the bank. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely kind of a luxury item. It's not necessary for many fleets, but it's unique and very Dutch and offers some kind of fun, interesting gameplay options, although not terribly strong.
Yeah, if you're looking at running a list that is centered around musketry at sea, I would say it's probably one of the better platforms to have, barring a galleon because of that height advantage. But otherwise, that's the only real gimmick I see here.
It also doesn't feel good to push around the table. Like, once you go windward accidentally, going 1 or 2 inches a turn is not fun when your opponent is going 5.
I've drifted. Yeah, as soon as you get a critical on it, you have -3 inches, and then wind goes down. Yeah. Any final parting shots?
I think we pretty much sank this.
It doesn't sink easy. Well, for more Blood and Plunder ship overviews and for a article covering this ship in particular, you can go over to bloodandpigment.com and check out all our work there. We have articles on ships and nations and factions and terrain and painting guides and battle reports and previews. Go check it out on the blog.
Check out the rest of our YouTube channel as well. We'll be aiming to put out a video at every Monday. Subscribe and ring the ship's bell so you can stay notified of our uploads.
As always, keep your dice ready and the wind at your back, yar har.